Welcome to the Power Factor Show. Episode 154.
Sponsored by Taylor Freelance, Rainier Ballistics, Hodgson Powders, and JPL Precision.
Hey Power Factor fans, I'm Rick. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about magazine maintenance. Again, when we think about maintaining our guns, we're really concerned about scrubbing out the bore and making sure we got fresh springs in it and stuff like that. But if you think of your gun and all of your equipment as a system, you need to maintain your magazines, maybe pay more attention to that than you do to the maintenance of the other parts of your gun. If you're familiar, been shooting automatic pistols, semi-automatic pistols for a long time, you'll often hear the comment that if you've got a problem with your gun, it's very possibly or even probably caused by magazines. And while I'm not sure that the magazine is necessarily the weak link, it is the part that we drop on the ground, we kick it around, we step on it, we just kind of expect it to work, and it really could use some, at least a little bit of maintenance to help ensure that your gun is going to run constantly and consistently. So here's, although not necessarily the magazines that everybody's going to be using, there's not that much difference from one mag to another, whether you're using single stack, high cap, whether it's domestic or imported, whatever. The only differences you'll probably find is some magazines will use a plastic tube as opposed to just a sheet metal tube like this. But most mags will have a removable base pad. There's a small hole in the base here, and you can just take a punch. The spring is pressing down on an there's a little plate in here that the spring is holding down against this base pad, and that's what retains it. So you depress the little internal plate, and that allows you to slide the plastic base pad off. And then here's the plate, and this is the little nub that locks the base pad on by the spring pushing it into that central hole. So if you slip this plate off, now watch me slip the plate off, that gives you access to the spring and follower. And now, because some magazines, you'll see that these lips at the bottom turn in and some of them turn out. If they turn out, then that spring is going to come flying out as soon as you get this plate off. But if you have the lips that turn in, there's a little bit of kind of working the spring out. You don't want to tug on it. You don't want to bend the spring. Stretching a spring essentially destroys it. You'll sometimes see people, especially if they've got a misfeed and they think the mag springs are weak, they'll stretch the spring out, and while that might work, get you through a single match, you've essentially destroyed the spring by stretching it. So if you do have to kind of tease it out like this, don't yank on it. Go ahead and just take a minute to get it out of there. And then once that's out, pay attention to how it's oriented in the tube. In this case, you've got this little curved piece on a slightly shorter coil at the top, and then just a straight leg on the coil at the bottom. So keep that, just be mindful of how that's oriented. Normally the front of the spring, the last coil will be upwards at an angle like that to help hold the nose of the follower up in the tube. In this case, I'm going to take this follower out the front. This is a standard, well-known Chip McCormick follower. This design's been around for almost 40 years, I think, and it just, this little loop at the top fits around this little punched out area, and so that shows the proper orientation of how it fits in the tube. Now, another thing that can destroy a spring is rust. There are some stainless steel springs around, not many. You'll mostly find magazines have conventional music wire springs, and if they get rusty, I have cleaned surface rust off springs before. These actually have some tiny little spots and should probably be cleaned up or replaced, because the rust here We'll leave pitting in the wire, and anywhere you've got a little imperfection like that in the surface, it can cause a weakness in the wire, and if this spring fails, it'll probably be someplace where there's been some rust accumulation, and the pitting will eat away at the metal and it might break at that point. So keep them clean. Again, here in the Northwest, our springs are likely to get wet. If I drop my springs in the mud and then step on them, I will usually just take the entire mag and swish it around in a mud puddle to get the mud out. And then, of course, now my mag's full of water. I blow it out, shake it out, but you probably should disassemble it and clean it because you will get that corrosion if you leave the water inside the tube. The tube itself, you'll probably see firing residue around the top here. You might also see some junk accumulated in the bottom of the mag. Anything that gets in the top could rattle down to the bottom of the tube, and then you'll see it deposited in the bottom. So if there's junk in there, dirt or sand or whatever, clean that out probably with a brush, or that's pretty tight in there. You might want to get in there with a Q-tip or something, clean that off. Make sure this isn't bent. This plate should be flat. Look for bends or any little damage to it. Again, same with the tube. Check to make sure the sides are smooth. I step on mags. If after you've injected your mag onto the ground, somebody else might very well step on it. So be mindful of any damage to the tube. You'll occasionally see fractures here in the back of the tube, little cracks. Keep an eye out for those. The mags will generally continue to work even if they're cracked. But the problem is if this cracks all the way through the wall, if it's not just isolated to this corner right here, if it cracks all the way around here, it could cause this side of the mag to kind of splay out, and then you're not going to get the proper control of the round that you need for reliable feeding. So just kind of inspect the tube, look for any problems, look for any burrs around the latch, the area here where the magazine catch latches into this notch. If there's any raised burrs, they could make it more difficult than necessary to get the mag into the gun, prevent it from dropping out of the gun. Likewise, mags after a while, sometimes even if there's no cracking or other issues, I've seen this area of the mag splay out a little bit. And it generally, in my experience, doesn't adversely affect feeding, but what you'll find is if this splays out, it can prevent the magazine from dropping out of the gun. And so what I'll generally do is I've got kind of a little test I perform, and I don't have to do it very often. I used to have to do it a lot with the 10-round mags I used when I was shooting limited 10. But I haven't had to use it. It's a test that I don't have to do often. I used to do it every week when I was shooting in limited 10. And I don't have to do it so much with my 8-round mags, but I will demonstrate it anyway. So the test I try to perform to test kind of the functionality of my mags on the bench as opposed to testing them in actual live fire to make sure that they're operating up to snuff is, do the mags lock the slide back when they're empty, and do they drop out of the gun when I hit the mag release? So there's a couple of simple tests I do. I'll put the empty mag in the gun. Does it go in there smoothly? Sure. And then does it lock the slide back? Now that the slide is locked back, does the mag drop cleanly from the gun? So it's just a simple test. You can do it once or twice for each mag. If it drops out, if it goes in smoothly, if the slide locks back, that's one part of the test. I'm satisfied that that works. Now, the issue that used to come up for me with my 10-round mags is, I think it had to do with the strength of the springs or something, but it seemed that the loading of the magazine and leaving it loaded with the spring pushing up on that stack of rounds would tend to splay these feed lips out slightly. And if I take my mags and just hold them up to the light and sight down the side, I can usually just tell by looking, are the sides parallel or have they started to splay out a little bit? And even if the mag is empty, that's the reason I performed the test that I just did, was to determine if the mag is splayed out, will it drop out of the gun? The other issue is if you put a round in the gun, it's pushing up against the feed lips will actually cause it to splay out a little more. So I've had mags that when they're empty, they'll drop out, but when there's one round in the mag, they won't. Now in USPSA, you're almost always reloading with rounds in the magazine. So the test for will the mag drop out with rounds in it is really important for USPSA. And the test for will the mag drop out when it's empty is more applicable to IDPA, where you're mostly doing slide lock reloads. So the test is kind of exactly the same. Push it into the gun, and does it drop out cleanly? And when I was shooting limited 10, I had a half a dozen magazines, and one at least every week when I did this test, it would not drop free. Now, if that's the case, again, what you can do is kind of hold the magazine up to the light and just sight down the sides like this. And is it straight on the side, or does it kind of splay out a little bit? And I've seen the mags, you know, I mean, you can visibly see they kind of look like this at the top. So you have these little ears. It's not really the feed lips themselves. You can see that the feed lip is formed into the magazine, but then you have this little ear that's out in front of the feed lip that kind of protects the sides of the follower. And that's the part that tends to splay out. And what I've done, a guy I used to know who shot would put the mag in a vise and just crank it down until it would drop out of the gun freely. What I do is I'll usually lay it down on the bench, and using a plastic or rubber mallet, I'll hold the follower inside the tube and then just lightly wrap on this little ear that's protruding out until the sides of the mag are pushed back in and they're parallel. And then I'll test it, go through the testing procedure again after I've tweaked it to make sure it'll drop out. Now, most people could probably get away with this test doing it, you know, once a month or even once a year. But again, in my experience, when I was having issues, and of course the issues would crop up during a match. I remember I was shooting a match, I was doing pretty well, and it came to the last stage, and I was thinking to myself, geez, you know, I didn't do the mag test before I came to the match, and I haven't had any issues, but boy, I hope I don't. And then of course on the last stage, 2 of my mags failed to drop out of the gun when I had to do reload, so I had to take the extra time. I always love that when I pull this mag out and I've still got a mag hanging out of the gun, so now I'm trying to strip that one out before I can get this one in. And so I've been just kind of bitten by that enough times that this magazine testing to see if it's working properly, dropping out of the gun, is something that I've become kind of anal about it. And maybe it's a test that it's never occurred to you to do it, but do it at least occasionally. I'd say annually. If you ever, let's say if you're changing your springs, maybe you change your mag springs every year. At the time you do that, just take a little check, make sure, obviously if it doesn't drop out, it's too late. You can also, on a high cap magazine that doesn't have parallel sides like this, what you can do is measure the gap of the feed lips on a magazine that's properly working. Let's say you have a half a dozen mags, measure them all and come up maybe with an average number. And as the mag, if they start to splay out, if you say measure them annually and they start looking like they're splaying out, maybe just say, okay, the widest one, I'm either going to have to tweak that one back or make that your last mag so that it's less likely to be actually used in action than the ones that are in better specification.
Hi, I'm Larry, and this week I've got a little match review for you. This was a pistol match we shot up at Custer, Washington, which is just about 6 miles south of the Canadian border. So I always joke around and say, you know, if somebody launches one over the berm, we could start an international incident up there with our friends to the north. So yeah, it's always a good time. They put on a great match, and you'll see that as we go through stage by stage. First of all, though, I want to announce the winner of a trivia question. Back when we had Robin Taylor in here, featuring his company Taylor Freelance and all the base pads and accessories and whatnot he makes for the Glock and the HK and the M&P, all these things, especially the Seattle Slug. That's where it all started with him. So we asked a question, how many brass Glock base pads does he offer? How many unique brass base pads does he offer? And it was not intended to be a little bit of a trick question, but you kind of had to pay attention. So, of course, we wanted you to head over to his website, taylorfreelance.com, and count them up. Go to his store and count up the Glock offerings there in brass. And the answer was 4. we got a lot of answers that were 5. And so if you went through the page and just looked at all the images, you know, and said, okay, we got this one, that one, whatever, you would see 5. However, the base pad itself on 2 of them were the same. One you could buy with the spring, one without the spring. And so that tripped up some of our viewers in answering the question. So unfortunately, we appreciate you playing. Unfortunately, we didn't count your answer if it was 5. The true answer was 4. And out of all the winners, out of all the participants, our winner was Stephen Vermeer. So Stephen, you're going to get yourself a Taylor Freelance product. Get in touch with us at powerfactorshow@gmail.com, or we will email you, and you can pick from the products that we got from Rob and Taylor. So again, this was a little quick match review I got for you. It was a pistol match. I shot production division with my Glock 23, shooting my sub-major loads that, once again, I won't call them minor because they made 162.5 power factor thereabouts last spring when we shot the Inland Empire sectional championship over there. You saw that on the second half. I revealed that my ammo went minor, didn't quite make the grade. So we know from the IDPA state match that Rick put together, we chronoed that ammo through that gun, and it was like 155 power factor. So sub-major. So anyway, I'm shooting my sub-major in this club match, shooting production division, and it was a ton of fun. We're gonna get this started off with stage, oh geez, I can't remember what stage it was. This was shot about a month ago, and we're finally getting together here to record this. So let's just fire it up.
Are you ready?
Facing up range, hands on the toilet seat. We got 8 shots. Over the right, we got 10 shots. And 10 more. And I got a standing reload. There's just no way to avoid it as a production shooter. And 10 more shots. So
unload, show clear, hammer down, holster. Ready to clear.
Total of 38 rounds. This range, this club is known for their high round count stages. Fairly straightforward. Not much I can say about that in terms of giving you any tips or anything, but just kind of getting in position as quickly as you can. There's plenty of room there to shoot on the move, a lot of wide open targets as you can see, so there's opportunities to shoot on the move there. Like I said, unfortunately, you wind up right at the end, and as a production shooter or a single stack shooter, what have you, you would be stuck with a standing reload right there. It's just kind of no way to avoid that. Okay, so we'll take a look at the spreadsheet where I track my match performance. If you're not familiar with this, head back to, I don't know, it was like episode 98 or something like that, about a year ago. And I talked about this spreadsheet that I keep track of my matches so I can kind of see if I'm going too slow or if I'm not being accurate enough. So we look here on stage 4. That was stage 4. I racked up 157 points with 1 miss. That was a 10-point penalty with a 27.30 as my time, 5.38 hit factor. And you'll see Robin Taylor won this stage with 176 points, 0 points down, and only 2 seconds slower than me. So he put up quite a few more points than I did, 5.92 hit factor. So you see here I was 90.8% on the stage. And if we look at my points percent, my time percent, and we talked about that back then, I won't really get too much into this, but that means points percent, I shot 83.5% of the points of the stage winner, and 108% on the time. That means I was faster than the stage winner. It was above 100%. So that's how that works, and we see Robin Taylor there as the stage winner. Okay, now we'll take a look at stage 5. This had a plate rack, as you see here on the still image at the beginning here. There's a plate rack on the left, and then through the port, which is closed, there's a bunch of steel poppers on the right, and then a long hallway going downrange. And you kind of had to take care of the steel on the left and the steel on the right before you headed downrange. It just didn't make sense to head back uprange, you know, working from right to left or left to right. I took a quick look at it, but it just didn't make any sense. There's too many things to get tripped up on there. A lot of people were practicing their stage walkthrough going to the right to the port first, but I thought I'd like to start with the plate rack so I don't have my heart rate up too high before I get to the plate rack. I don't want to make a big run from right to left and then have to stop and plant and try to get settled on the plate rack. So as you'll see here, I started on the plate rack.
Stand by!
Okay, I gotta make a reload. I'm shooting production and hit that window. 4 steel poppers. A couple of wide open targets, reload. Yeah, crappy reload. And one final reload. Finish it out.
If clear, hammer down, holster. Range is clear.
All right, so stage 5, let's see how we did. Here on my tracking spreadsheet, I was first on the stage with 138 points, 0 points penalty, so no misses or no shoots or anything like that, and 29.41 seconds on that stage with a 4.69 hit factor for the win on that one. This is stage 6. This is the what they call the CPB bay, which I believe is Canadian Border Patrol. And they have this little shoot house that's just permanently installed there on the range, and there's they use it for various drills, and there's a little shoot house that we use quite a lot. So this one is one of the bays on this range that they deem to be a 270 degree bay, or more than 180. So there's not just a 180 line for your muzzle direction. You can actually point up range in a couple of areas, and you'll see that especially right here in the first shots as we get started. So we start at the doorway and run through the house. Now this one was a little bit different, and then we exit the house and we run from, this is along the right side berm. It's constructed on the right side berm, and then we exit the house and then run left across the field and finish out with a Texas Star, and you will see that now.
Stand by!
So you see what I mean here? We're turning up range right there. That was, you know, just past the 180 on that target as well. Okay, so here I decide to exit the house right here. And there's one in the back corner. I'm creeping up on it, trying to get a good angle on him, and make my reload as I head out to the Star.
Nice!
And that went rather well. So, let's see how we did on that one. Actually, I was third place on that stage in production division on this match. 107 points, 0 penalties, and 32.82 seconds. And a guy by the name of Jason won the stage with 119 points, so he beat me on the points. He had no penalties, and he beat me on the time, 31.79. So we come down here to the percentages. Overall on the stage, I was 87%, 89%, almost 90% of the points, and he shot it in 96% of my time. So his time was less than my time, is what that means. So, yeah, that was a fun stage. It's rare that we exit the house and run around elsewhere in that bay. It's always a little, it feels a little weird at first. I mean, you just kind of have to get over it. Just say, we're at Custer, They have different rules. They have different capabilities. They're not breaking any rules. They just have different muzzle safe directions using IDPA terms. We're able to do some things like that you're not able to do in a lot of other clubs. So that's fun. Now, stage 1, I neglected to record it, and that's always kind of what they call the halls and walls. It's a real tight, long, narrow bay. They usually have you zigzagging through these walls and stuff. And this one, all the walls and the barricades were on the right side, and you'll see pretty much the same setup, the same layout with Doug Hartley on episode 150 when he was doing the 3-gun, the Toys for Tots 3-gun match. That's the one where he charged down there and finished out, I remember, with a shotgun with about, I don't know, 10 clay targets on little stands and just decimated those things. I mean, 3 or 4 per second. Boom, 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 boom with his Sega shotgun. That was pretty impressive. So I wish I had video of that. That's kind of how it was set up, if you're curious. But on that one, I usually do really well on that one. That's kind of my style of stage. It's a big hoser stage, and that's me. I'm a big hoser. So I won that one with 152 points, 0 penalties, and 21.31 seconds. Stage 2 on this match at this range is traditionally the classifier. It's a smaller bay, and they set the classifier up on that one. This one I think was called 6. And I like this one.
Ready? Stand by.
So yeah, 6 shots minimum. It's a
I suck. That could have been a GM run.
it's a turn and draw, and 2 rounds on paper. There's 2 steel poppers, 1 big one behind a little one that you could very easily ding ding and get them both at the same kind of, one after the other before they fall. You don't have to wait for the front one to fall before you can see the back one, so that's nice. That lends itself to getting some speedy times. And I don't know, for whatever reason, I do rather well at this one. When I shot a year ago, or maybe a year and a half ago, the first time I ever shot limited 10 in my life was a classifier match, and they had this one, and I don't know, I put up a 85% or something like that, master level score on that one anyway. This one, I'm not sure how this one stands up nationally, but the 7.93 hit factor, 28 points, 3.53 seconds. So I'm pretty happy with that. And I won the stage in production. Okay, so the final stage we shot on this day was stage 3. This is the other 270 bay where you can turn uprange with the gun. It's kind of hook shaped, where on the uprange right side it's 180, but it kind of wraps around, the berm wraps around, and you can, over on the left side, you can point what would be uprange if the berm wasn't there. So everybody stays back in this alleyway that's behind the berm and downhill a little bit, and just the RO and the shooter go back there. And so on this one, we start in a shooting box, and you'll see this when I start playing the video. We start standing in a shooting box, and there's a bunch of steel to the left, and you have to shoot the steel from the box. And then you're free to run around and shoot the rest of the stage. There's 3 targets on the right of the box and downrange a little bit. And then there's this wall. I wish I could show you while I'm talking about it, but there's this wall that you run to the left and go around it, and you got to come back, and there's a target to shoot right there, kind of right on the 180, and it's only, I don't know, 4 or 5 feet down range of the wall, so you can't go too far down before you're hitting the 180, and that is a 180 in this right-hand side of the bay. And then there's another barricade that you kind of have to go down range and get around to see a couple of targets down there. So I noticed that there's a way I could just go straight forward, and I'm telling everybody on my squad, I mean, this is what I'm planning to do. Does anybody see any problems with this? And I mean, there's plenty of people have been walking through there. It's plenty of room to walk through there, right at the base of the berm, and all the people walking through there for resetting the stage, for taping the targets. And I told everybody, I'm I think I'm going to go this way. I think I'm going to go that way. Does anybody have a problem with that? Does anybody see, does anybody want to raise issue with that before I do it? And that's a tip for you. I recommend if you're going to do something a little crazy, a little out of the ordinary that you think you might catch some heat for, talk to the rest of your squad, talk to the range master before doing it, and just to see if they have any problem with it. I didn't really see an issue. I wasn't running up the berm or anything like that. You're not allowed to run up on the berm. So let's just take a look at this stage and you'll see how it went. First of all, I'm kind of upset. I hit the steel poppers. There's 2 steel poppers over there, and they failed to fall. So I had to shoot them twice. But otherwise, see, that was the first shot on the popper. I had to come back to it and come back to that one. Now you'll see here 2, 4, 6 on the right. And then I sneak through there and take those 2 shots. Now I got to back up to take this one. And then I can finish out the rest of the stage kind of like everyone else did. So right here I'm on the 180, and that's pointing up range at that low target. And then a quick lean as I jump and kind of fall out of the box, fall behind the fault line there.
Quick hammer down, holster.
So you'll notice, and maybe we can put up here on the screen a little freeze frame before I run forward after taking those shots, 2, 4, 6 on the right. You'll notice you got the wall, kind of, let's just say it's on the 180, and then there's a fault line from that wall coming back to me. So when I'm devising my plan, I tell the guy, okay, I know that I can't just run forward because I'll be outside the fault line as I'm shooting those targets. So I'll shoot the targets from the box to make sure I don't fault that line. But the question is, what happens when I go downrange of that wall? There's no more fault lines anywhere, and everyone's running out to the base of the berm anyway to shoot those 2 targets that you saw I engaged after going down range. So I just wanted to make sure everyone was on board. The RO that was running me was on board with my plan, and I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to get assessed any penalties for shooting out of bounds. So again, a tip for you, make sure that that you talk through your plan. Don't just keep it in your head and say, oh, I'm going to watch this, I mean, I fully revealed my plan and nobody thought it was a good idea. So, I thought, I don't know, what the heck, let's just try it. Let's just see what happens. And the only warning I got from the RO was that target you're running past, just a few feet beyond that wall on the 180 line, let's just call it on the 180 line, make sure you come back far enough to engage it, because you would get DQ'd if you were up range of that target and shooting it past the 180, because that is a 180 on the right side of the bay. So yeah, no problem. Did that, and it worked out well for me at 138 points, 29.41 on the clock, and 4.69 hit factor was enough to win the stage. So thanks to Custer, the Custer Range, for putting on the match. It was a ton of fun. The regular guys and the regular production shooters were all out of town for a 3-gun event, so that's why I was able to win production, because all my masterclass friends were out of town. So I'll take it. I'll take it. Whatever, I'll take it. Thanks a lot, guys, and we'll see you next week.